Welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us once again from wherever you're watching across Africa and beyond. Now, this week we host a panel discussion on women and the economy in Africa. You get to have your say on the issues as well. And we have Africa's top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I am Julie Gichuru. This week we focus on women and the economy in Africa. We speak to a panel of experts in Lilongwe, Malawi. On our panel, Jessie Kambalame, CEO of the African Institute of Corporate Citizenship, which focuses on the role of the private sector in development. Winnie Kathurima Imanyara, Director of Leadership and Corporate Affairs at Equity Bank. Winnie is also a Director at Housing Finance, both based in Kenya. Jessie Kabwila, Senior Lecturer at the University of Malawi, Chancellor College, where she focuses on women and gender issues. Let's get their thoughts on women and the economy in Africa. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us on the Africa Leadership Dialogues and for making time to discuss women and the economy. I think, let me start with you, Jessie, and you are actually running an organization that looks into the issue of corporate citizenship. What are your experiences in terms of empowering women to actively participate in the economy, not just at the small micro level, but also growing big businesses? What's your experience? Is it happening? What are the positive steps that are being taken?
Well, I think it hasn't been happening enough. And that's one of the reasons why AICC thought of entering this space. Because we're almost obsessed with development. But when you look at our agendas in addressing development issues, we don't normally think strategically. Whereas if I want to invest in a business, I'll first of all calculate how much do I need to invest, who are my customers, who are my suppliers, and what facilities do I need, and for me to sustain myself, how do I do that? Whereas when you're having the development discussion, you would look at investment, even if it's an economic activity, and which is where most of the women have had access. Someone will implement a project, and then 5 years, 10 years down the line, when the project is about to end, then they start talking about sustainability. How do we sustain this? So what we realized was there are skills within the business development that look at how am I making decisions before I enter into this discussion or investment. It's not acceptable in the business world for you to invest money and then say, oh, I made a mistake. You'd definitely be fired. Whereas in the development world, it's acceptable to say, well, I had my parameters wrong. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So basically what we are now looking at is how do we start to address economic empowerment in a sustainable manner, in a strategic way.
And how are you doing this? How are you now reframing the thinking to take us away from the development ideology to sustainable business?
Well, what we're looking at is how are the different pillars of society and the economy operating? Because as government, your responsibility is to make policies. How are you informing those policies? As a business, your responsibility is to invest. Now, government creates that environment for you, the enabling environment for you to actively participate as a business entity. Now, civil society has to hold business accountable. Now, if each player does their role, business will thrive, but that business will also be accountable. And at the end of the day, the economy is the one that is going to grow. But how you make your decisions is also important, because you have to look at who are my constituents, who are my suppliers. Now, if your suppliers, say for example in Malawi, one of the key programs that we have is in agriculture. Now we're looking at how are you as a private investor also making sure that part of your supply chain also includes women cooperatives. But how are you helping form those cooperatives? Sometimes you'll find that we'll go in and train people for 1 week and then say, okay, now you can form a cooperative. Whereas for anyone who's been to business school, they've gone to primary school. For example, in Malawi, you have 12 years of primary and secondary schooling, and then you have 4 years of university, just so you can understand principles of economic management. Yet, when we're working with people in communities, we expect them to understand all these theories and principles
in 1 week.
In 1 week. You know? And these are people that already don't have the exposure and the understanding and even the literacy levels for them to go and invest on their own. So what we're now looking at is, as you engage along that value chain, what are the key things that you need to understand on how those dynamics work? So when we're working with business, we're looking at how do you facilitate a conversation with government that helps you thrive as a business, but enables you to make the right investment. Okay. And if you're working with farmers, how are you relating to business? Because unless the businessman understands what you as a farmer are going through, they won't really appreciate why maybe you're asking for that better price. What's your investment in that?
And some of the very basics, and we've seen this especially with farmers, and Winnie, let me come to you now, is that a farmer will spend the whole day tilling the land, their wife will be tilling alongside, the children will come from school and till the land, but you don't value the work that your family is putting in. You don't appropriately price the good. You're locked into this cycle of poverty. So Equity Bank, which you work, where you are based, has an entrepreneurship education platform. Tell us a little bit about that and how it's trying to transform lives.
Okay, thank you, Julie. At Equity Bank, we'll describe that as a chain, breaking the chain of poverty, what you've just described. The vicious cycle. We want to turn that around to a virtuous cycle. How do we do it? I'll answer your question with a story. A true story of a lady. She's not a farmer, but we caught up with her when she was taking photographs at one of our parks in Nairobi. And she would borrow a camera, take photographs, and sell them at 50 Kenya shillings each. And she came to us and said, could I borrow 50,000 Kenya shillings? She didn't have any collateral. There was nothing she could borrow against. And we believed in her because we knew if we give her 50,000 shillings, she will buy a bigger camera and she will multiply her work. Now we gave her the 50,000 shillings against her work. And her daughter, of course, and her son were also tending to be photographers because they didn't know anything else that brought food on the table apart from doing what their mother was doing. So she sent for a camera in Dubai. She came and started taking more photographs. She opened a studio, came back to us for more money. Now her story is we've encouraged her with financial literacy, training her how to look after her books, how to expand her entity. She has formed an ecosystem that says she's now one of our biggest Safaricom agents in the region. She is a mighty woman and in banking, not millions, probably $1 billion right now. She started with borrowing 50,000 Kenya shillings.
How long ago?
This must be about 13, 14 years now. And now she employs a whopping over 600 people, but she has also given agents. You know, she's created an ecosystem that has grown and grown, which is feeding so many families. Now, that's what Equity Bank is doing as an enabler. We have women products that says women in our culture do not normally own property, do not own land in their names, apart from a few African countries probably. But we said, what do women own? They must be owning something. Maybe a woman in the countryside owns a cow. That is equals to some money. Maybe the woman in town owns some clothes and even her matrimonial bed. That's some money. So it's not true that women don't own anything, irrespective. So we went on and with Elizabeth Lwanga, an incredible woman, put together a women product called Fanikisha. That means you could borrow with your cow. Come to Equity Bank, you get your money, 20,000 shillings, to buy you another cow, You borrow with the first cow, and you're able to feed your family in the evening with milk, but not only that, in the morning you deliver milk that pays you at the end of the month. And the story continues until we've gotten women with 5, 10, and a big hand of cows, and you bring them from poverty. You break that chain of poverty. She's able to feed the family, take the children to school. So when education sets in, of course, those children will go on and they will get employment. The home just becomes better and better. And also at Housing Finance, we've now come up with a mortgage product that you don't need all those deposits that we are asked for. You just come in as you are, propose that I can be able to pay this, and we'll do the rest. So that's how we have broken what I would call, we call at Equity Bank, the chain of poverty.
In a continent where increasingly we're seeing single mothers bringing up homes, these are critical factors, towards building a good and strong society. Let me come to you now, Jessie. And I think, Winnie has addressed the issue I was going to raise, which was access to finance, and saying, look, don't look for the title deed to the land. Don't look for the traditional, assets that banks look for. Look for non-traditional things. Even the sweat of the woman could be something that counts. But let's then analyze the fact that for many women across Africa, it's about micro-lending. It's about small business, and we're not empowering them to grow bigger. Is this a challenge, and how do we address this?
Yes, you're right. I think for many women, it is about micro-lending. And at least I come into this from a research perspective, and what we are seeing is that there are few banks that are doing what Equity is talking about. One thing that the continent really could do with is banks that are not asking for huge collateral and conditions. We still have places where women have to get permission from their husband for them to access loans, for them to do what they need to do. So what I would say is, yes, it is micro, but we need to be careful that we are not constructing loans that actually keep these women in perpetual poverty. Because what we have seen, for example, people give out loans for here in Malawi kwacha, it would be, someone will come and get 10,000 kwacha, or is it even in other currencies. But the smaller the loan, the harder it is for the women to get out. And the other thing that makes it very difficult is that really women are in informal businesses. This is where they are in. When you look at the economies, it is very, very difficult, because the kind of things that women are able to get into are sometimes things that are not recognized as labor. There are things that are not even registered as labor, and it is very, very difficult. In other words, what is required, which I think is increasingly coming up, is an evidence-based kind of financing of women, the kind of financing that understands the woman condition, where somebody takes the trouble to say, for a woman to get into business, what is it that they require? Where are the gaps? And how do we address the gender gaps when we're talking about women economic empowerment? In other words, gendering of policies of whatever it is we're talking about economic empowerment, because it is from the policies that we work out frameworks that can reach people. Because the greatest challenge for our continent is that we're dealing with a group of people or women who are illiterate, and also have are entering a space that has been defined as male. And for them to be in business, they are actually crossing, transcending borders of gender, borders of class, and every day for them to do business, it involves staying away from home, and already they are being called names out of that. Now, when you do that, it's almost as if for them to get into business, they have to make a decision. They take a risk that is very, very high. So yes, micro-lending is there, but we also have to say that there's a body of research there that shows the challenge of micro-lending. And it is very, very difficult when we give women money when they don't have self-determination. Because once we don't fortify their female self-determination, you can find that you give them money and they surrender the money to the men, or they use the money not to fortify themselves. A lot of micro-lending has just created a vicious circle where you find women who are in business and they are doing a lot, but they are not owning the proceeds of what they are getting. So I would say the kind of micro-lending that should come should be together with building the capacity of the women themselves to start believing in themselves, because if you don't fortify the woman, it's the same as pouring a lot of water into a cup that has got holes. It will not hold. So it has to go hand in hand with looking at identity as a driver of economic development. Because I think often people talk about money. There are people, you can give $1 million to someone today and $1 million to the second person, but it all depends on what they believe in themselves. And lastly, it's the capacity. I think a lot of the places we lack training women in how to run these businesses. Negotiating skills are very, very much lacking. You find that the businesses that women are accessing, is a man will get there, but because he's got the confidence, he's got the negotiating skills, he knows where the markets are, he's able to sell the same thing for much more. Right. And then you find that women need to increase their ability to group themselves, and work as cooperatives and be able to, that way they'll find that they'll be able to get these markets and be able to capitalize on them. Now, all these things are very much easier said than done, but we also need to remember that for women, especially on the lower, the ones who get micro-lending, these are people who have got structures that are telling them they cannot. And it is very easy for people to say they choose, because the discourse that is out there is you can. The whole American dream business of those who want can get it. Well, those who want can get it if they don't have chains around them. But the women we are dealing with here are women who will have cultural chains, economic chains, religious chains. Now, unless we actually deconstruct those chains, then we can go and say, go out there and get it.
Let me stop you there. Powerful, powerful.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
I'm coming to each of you, literally 30 seconds. How do we deconstruct those chains? Daisy.
I think what Jessie said is important. You have to have a way of helping women believe in themselves, and also empowering those around them to understand that a powerful woman is not a threat.
How do we do that?
Awareness. Awareness is key. The experience, and sometimes even just how we're educating our children. I ask myself, what am I telling my son? How am I raising my son to be able to recognize the fact that if you are surrounded by a powerful woman, that doesn't mean that she's a threat. You don't have to pull her down or demean her just so that you can feel that I'm a man.
So education awareness is critical. Winnie, for you.
I think to demystify or to break that chain, we start with us first in the financial world, as bankers, me included, me number one counted. We are very, very many women serving the banks. If today we were asked, what on earth are you doing for women's sake in that bank, what would be our question? Let us be in those banks because we are the policy makers. We are the ones who are defining the products and services. Can we define it with a womanness in that product? Can we say the policy says 1, 2, 3, but today we are changing it? There is no rule that's written on stone. We are the people who are leading in the central banks that regulate these microfinances and all the financial world. We are the ones sitting in the elm of serving these women. And we sit in a way that we actually referenced when we create these products and services. For example, you, Winnie, you women, how we are making this product. So what features and benefits should we put on it? Let us remove that hat of a man, being a man sitting here because it's a man world, it's a banking world, can we sit as a woman? Can we sit as a woman and say, this is what I experience, this is what my mother experiences, and my auntie, and this is what my daughter will experience if I don't put my foot down and sit properly on this seat of an executive of a bank as a woman. Let us wear the womanness and we can be able to do it.
Relevant products and services that address the need,
yes,
and that grow and build societies. Very briefly, Jessie, so you pose the question, what's your solution?
I think the deconstructing for me starts with glocalizing what we call gender. In other words, starting from the local, because I think there is often a tendency to say culture is a problem. Yes, it is, but I think we also need to remember not to throw away the baby with the bathwater. There is a lot in our culture that is quite positive, just as there is some that is very negative. And if we are able to link that, take what it is that we can use, we need to remember that we have an urgent duty to de-eliticize whatever it is we are calling development, whatever it is we are calling woman. It is not about the educated, it is not about the ones who are in this room, speaking English, and is it the other colonial subjects. We should always remember to center those who have been removed by the patriarchal framework that we are using.
Mama Africa herself, the woman who tills the land, the woman who's working to develop her community at local level. But let me now move from entrepreneurship to look at a different perspective. Now, we criticize our governments a lot, and there's the challenge of underrepresentation of women in politics, and we've been talking about that. But private sector performs far worse than government in this particular area. When you look at senior management positions, and even more horrifying, at board level, the representation of women is shockingly low. So each of you, please tell me, what do we need to do to start to change this? And I'll come back to you again, Daisy, to start.
I think, as you said, it's being able to point it out, and also understanding the role and the power that we do harness as women, and even as individuals, because we have a sphere of influence. But who are the people that we're interacting with all the time? Who are the people that we're building up? How are we creating platforms? Today, I might have a contract that I want to advertise. Am I going to actually be able to identify, not just because of people, not just because of their competence, but also their capability, and also create that space for women businesses to bid for that? So I think those are some of the things that we need to start critically looking at, and how building capacity to be able to take up those positions. Because sometimes I think we wait for people to hand it over to us, but can you be able to actually take up that challenge?
Be professional, be informed, be knowledgeable, be an expert in your area, stand up and be engaged, be visible, all these things.
Exactly.
I guess, okay.
I think like one of the things that I've learned, even in my own life, is that when I started working for AICC in 2005, everyone thought I was crazy, because it was expected for me. I've done my university, then I work for a bank or government or some other institution. People were like, why are you working for an NGO? An NGO that we were just registering it. There were 2 of us. But now we are able to actually employ up to 20 people. This is after 8 years. But it's because we were able to develop that product, but we've also maintained that professionalism. As you're saying, keeping yourself involved, working hard, making sure you deliver. So you're not waiting for someone to create that space, but you're going out there and saying, you know what, I will do my best. Right. If that best is not good enough, then that's a different story. But if you're able to go and do your best, then I think we can start to actually accentuate what women can do, and even at boardroom level.
Now, Winnie, because you're in the corporate world, I'm going to come back to you in a moment for your response to this, and first come to Jessie. What do we need to do to change the dynamic?
In fact, I was just going to say, I think we're in a world which buys what they think works, and I think if we popularize the benefits of representation, of gender justice. It works. For example, in many countries, you look at the MDGs that we're talking about, the ones that are lagging behind. They are the ones that are involving gender. They are the ones that are involving women. If it becomes very clear, even to the private sector, or is it the government, that as long as this continues, we are not going to solve the problems of adverse climate change. We are not going to solve the problems of HIV/AIDS. I think it is going to help, because what we need is to actually illustrate that this is a win-win situation if both people, because the corporate world, whether we like it or not, will do what they think will bring money to the table. And the good news is that actually gender justice brings money. It does. It's just that a lot of the people have not put the model there because they would like to keep, it's the elite model of what they're going to do. So I would say popularizing the advantages of gender justice.
So let's just emphasize that there is wealth in gender justice. Let's emphasize that for a moment. Okay, so Winnie, let's come to you. I mean, you are under fire here. This is your sector. Yes. And you are at senior level. You know, you are doing well. How do we start to make sure other women are also able to take that space?
Okay, two things. First, there's no bank that can ignore the strength of numbers. We all need customers. Why do we go out there and give you presents and dance for you and do everything?
Banks give people presents?
Yes, we still give you trips to go to China, trips to go where. Why do you think we do all that? There is none of us who can ignore the strength of numbers. This strength of numbers, guess where it is found? It's in women. Women, we are the majority. And therefore, we know what you mean to us. We know it. We might put it in such strong and very complicated language so that we look sophisticated. We need to demystify banking right now, and I want to announce to everybody, banking is not rocket science. It's just taking money from her and giving it to her, and in between, I make a profit. That's all.
Some serious interest in between.
Now, so what do we need to do then? The women, and again, the call to action, Julie, for me, is the women in these seats of ours, all the bankers, all the financiers. I call upon women financiers to get what? To be mad. Mad is M-A-D, M-A-D, making a difference. If you go to the dictionary today, madness is not about insanity. That's the third meaning. The first meaning is enthusiasm. The second meaning is passion. And the third meaning is insanity. So we need the women in the financial world to get mad. Make a difference. Go to that boardroom, because usually we fear the boardrooms. Guys, there's nothing. Those of us in the boardrooms, Elizabeth, myself, and so on, we need to get out of the boardroom and tell the other women, inside there, fire does not burn. Inside there is just some men, many men, and one or two women looking at how we can progress. It's not rocket science. We need to demystify it, Julie. So my call to action is, women, get mad. Make a difference. And as you're getting mad, make a way and a passage for the rest of our sisters out there.
Wow. To wind up, ladies, just looking at the impact that a financially empowered woman has on her family and on her community, just looking at the number of young children, as mentioned earlier, who are brought up in single-parent families, not just by mothers, but the grandmothers on this continent who are bringing up children, taking them through education, struggling to give them a chance at life. As we wind up, I'd like each of you to look into the camera and give your word of encouragement to women who are seeking financial empowerment, who are seeking a more dignified life, but also to other stakeholders who could contribute on this journey. Please deliver your message. And Jessie, we'll start with you.
Okay, my message is that I think the first thing that is important is that economic models need to be gendered, because unless we are using economic models that actually women can fit into, then we are going to just play a catch-22 situation. Policies also need to be gendered. And I would say we need to find spaces where women can fit in. Because as long as you are using a round mold, you cannot expect to get a square out of it. You're going to get the mold that you are using. And at the moment, the economic model we are using, a good number of us are using Eurocentric models that actually reproduce elitism and things that benefit patriarchal models. So unless we understand that only when we gender our policies, gender our frameworks, and make sure that the economic model that we are using fits the condition, the woman condition of Africa, I think we will be here 10 years from now saying the same thing. Thank you very much.
We certainly don't want that. Please, Winnie, your thoughts.
To my sisters out there, either the grandmothers leading homes, single mothers, or even the men leading homes, my message would be opportunities come in overalls. Opportunities come looking so difficult and so unachievable. When you see one, you want to run away from it. So the situation you could be in right now may be your space in this world. It may be the opportunity that you've been waiting for. And therefore, my message to you is, do not fear and dream with your eyes open. The dreams that come true are those dreams that you dream with your eyes open. And the other ones in the bed are nightmares. What do I mean by dream with your eyes open? Look at your dream on the face. If it is a big car you have wanted, when you look at it with your eyes and follow it moving and wish it could be mine, start looking for a dealer who is selling cars. Start looking for hard work to do to get the money. So dream with your eyes open. Face at these opportunities which come in overalls, not with fear, but audaciously, like I know I can do it.
Dream with your eyes open, have the audacity of hope. I borrow that from a black president of the United States of America. And chase that dream. If you see something that you want, salivate for it, go after it. Very, very inspirational. Please, Daisy.
I think I'd like to pose a question to say, within your sphere of influence, what decisions are you making? How are you creating space and opportunities for others to lead and to grow? I, as a woman, I know I have those responsibilities. I'm a manager, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. How am I influencing those around me, those that are closest to me? Because unless we have that impact, the small changes will lead to the big changes. And until we make those decisions and make those conscious decisions to actually enable women to be empowered, it's not going to happen on its own. So I would want us to just really reflect on that and say, what is it that I'm doing? Because it has to start with me and not anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Let's give them a really big round of applause. Thank you.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
What fascinating insights. I hope you had a pen and a paper. Did you know that your bank owes you certain services? Entrepreneurship, education, and so much more. Perhaps you need to sit with your bank and have a serious chat. Let's get your views now on the issues.
This week we asked you, in your own view, how can women be more involved in the economic affairs of our country? Anthony Ochieng Lidende says, 3 key pillars of realization of this are educating them so that they can gain the know-how to achieve their goals and aspirations, financial assistance on favorable terms, eradicate stigma associated with our customs, culture, and practices. Kubasu Andrew says, government should empower women to set up suitable enterprises rather than restraining them to house chores. They should also rise up and play active leadership roles as a way of mentoring their young ones, since the world is short of good role models, especially to the girl child.
My name is Paul Thuo, watching Africa Leadership Dialogues from Nairobi on how women can be economically empowered to run the affairs of a country. It is paramount for them to be provided with equal opportunity as their male counterparts Consequently, it is also important to ensure that the number of women in leadership positions is significantly increased to ensure that they have their say in matters pertaining to the economy.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD, and on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
And now, Africa's Top 10.
On Africa's Top 10 this week, we feature the young African women to watch. At number 10 is Mariame Jammeh from Senegal. She was named one of CNN's top 10 African tech voices to follow on Twitter. The Senegalese-born CEO of Sport One Global Solution helps IT organizations establish a global footprint in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. She is also the co-founder of Africa Gathering, the first global platform where entrepreneurs and experts meet to share ideas about development in Africa. Positioned at number 9 is 18-year-old Gogontlejang Faladi. Faladi is the founder of the Gogontlejang Faladi Pillar of Hope project, GPPHP. The GPPHP is a non-profit making charitable organization that she established in the year 2000 when she was only 5 years old. The part-time radio presenter on privately owned Duma FM is a motivational speaker, philanthropist, peer counselor and educator, human rights, child and gender activist and advocate, writer and poet. Hadil Ibrahim comes in at number 8. Although a resident in the UK, Hadil has a passion and commitment to Africa that mirrors that of her Sudanese-born father, Mo Ibrahim. She is the executive director of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, which was established in the year 2006 to support great African leadership by her father, Mo Ibrahim, a telecommunications billionaire. It offers a $5 billion prize to an African head of state who has demonstrated excellence as a leader based on the Mo Ibrahim Index of African Governance. At number 7 is Kenyan Juliana Rotich. Juliana is the co-founder and executive director of Ushahidi, a Kenyan tech company that develops free open-source software. She was named one of the top 100 women by the Guardian newspaper, top 2 women in technology and social entrepreneur in the year 2011 by the World Economic Forum. The uniqueness of her product lies in its ability to aggregate and curate crisis data on a real-time basis and collate the data into live interactive maps. Zimbabwean Dr. Jacqueline Chimanzi comes in at number 6. Residing in South Africa, she is a senior strategist with the Industrial Development Corporation (IDC), a leading development finance institute on the African continent. Jackie is also a fellow and a trustee of the Archbishop Desmond Tutu Leadership Program and a founding member of the New Faces, New Voices, an organization dedicated to widening financial access for African women entrepreneurs. Jackie is married to Arthur Mutambara, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe. Coming in at number 5 is Cena Lawson, a former manager of corporate strategy and business development at the France Telecom Orange Group in New York City and Alcatel-Lucent in Paris. She is Togo's current Minister of Post and Telecommunications. She began her career in telecommunications at the World Bank in Washington, D.C., focusing on regulatory reforms for the developing nations. She was named a 2012 Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. With Africa's booming telecoms and mobile industry and more women than ever entering the male-dominated field, Cena Lawson has her work cut out for her in the year 2013. Taking the number 4 spot is Rabia Najlawi, the youngest elected member of parliament in Tunisia. She was elected at 23 and has served for 3 years. She featured in a documentary called Women Rising, which also featured President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia and President Joyce Banda of Malawi, amongst others. Rabia has taken the mantle in Tunisia and paved the way for others to follow suit. Coming in at number 3 is Elsie Kanza. Born in Kenya to Tanzanian parents and educated in Kenya and then later in the United States, Elsie is one of the leading and most dynamic female leaders emerging from Africa. She's the director, head of Africa at the World Economic Forum, the Geneva, Switzerland-based organization whose mission is to engage political, business, and social leaders to shape global agendas and effect local change. Prior to her role as head of Africa at the World Economic Forum, Kanza served as personal assistant and economic advisor to His Excellency Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania in the year 2006 to the year 2011. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie comes in at number 2. The 36-year-old Igbo writer from Nigeria has been called the most prominent of a procession and critically acclaimed young Anglophone authors that is succeeding in attracting a new generation of readers to African literature. Her books include The Purple Hibiscus, Half a Yellow Sun, The Thing Around Your Neck, and Americana. And taking the number 1 spot this week is Dambisa Moyo, a Zambian-born economist who analyzes the macroeconomy, foreign aid impact, and global affairs. In the year 2013, Moyo was awarded the Hayek Lifetime Achievement Award, named for the Nobel Prize and recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, Frederick Hayek. Moyo was also a participant at the Bilderberg Conference and was named by Time magazine as one of the world's 100 most influential people. In the year 2009, Moyo was also honored by the World Economic Forum as one of its young global leaders. In September 2009, Moyo was featured in Oprah Winfrey's Power List of 20 Remarkable Visionaries. That's Africa's Top 10 this week.
We close this week with a quote from Mike Adenuga, Nigerian business magnate, and he said, "The harder you work, the luckier you get." Well, I'd say it applies if you're working smart. So are you working hard and smart? That's it for me for this week. I'm Julie Gichuru. I look forward to being with you again next week. Blessings to you and blessings to Africa.